This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy, here today to react to what he saw live at Ford Field when the Lions unfortunately lost to the Seahawks, is my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. We're going to talk all about it. First half of the podcast, what the hell does this mean for the Lions being 1-1, now having a rash of injuries? Is our expectations changing? What's going on? Is the season now up in flames? What does this mean? Does everybody need to calm down? We're going to break it all down and figure out what the hell happened to the Lions. In the second half of the podcast, we got to touch on Michigan and Michigan State. Everything is kind of evolving with the Spartans and Wolverines, and it was real interesting to see the Wolverines kind of sleep through a contest, seeing J.J. McCarthy struggle against a Bowling Green team. What does that mean? How is he going to rebound moving forward? Jim Harbaugh's back. He's kind of found his inner zen being away. He's kind of found his niche in regards to kind of how he needs to move forward, being the better man that he is after stepping away for 3 games. We got to talk about all that because you got the floor. You were there. We all saw it. The Lions didn't play their best game. What's your reaction? I know you're not happy with what you saw from the Lions in their overtime loss to the Seahawks.
I'm so frustrated and I'm so upset with this week's performance. Last week's performance, I should say. My voice is a wreck. Like, my throat hurts so bad right here because I showed up. I punched in. I did my job. As a fan, I did everything I could do to be as loud as I could possibly be, to try to force false starts, to try to upset what Seattle was doing. And in the end, it didn't matter. In the end, there's a ton of blame to go around. We're going to get into all of it. But I feel like a lot of it lies at the feet of the coaching staff. I was there in my seat 25 minutes before kickoff. I'm usually never there that early. I was pumped. The fan base was pumped. I made friends with people in front of me. I made friends with people behind me. I was trying to coach up a little kid. There was a lady there. There was a grandmother there with her grandson. I was trying to coach him up and teach him that everything he does in the stands impacts what takes place on the field. I look like a freaking idiot today to that little kid. Trying to get him riled up, trying to get him to stand on his seat, trying to get him to scream as loud as he could scream, to cause a false start, to disrupt any of the plays that the offense had going on for Seattle. I look like a moron. I feel like absolute garbage right now. Like, when I say my throat is decimated, it feels like somebody took a steel rake and has just spent the last 4 days running it across my larynx. I'm so upset and I'm so frustrated. And I said there's plenty of blame to go around. And there is. There really is. Like, you can go in and you can break down this game. You can look at first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. This team, I don't know if they started reading their own press clippings. I don't know if this team got super hyped on their own hype. I'm not sure what it is. I'm really not. But if you ask me, I think this coaching staff, I think Dan Campbell specifically, cost this team a victory, cost this team being 2-0. This was supposed to be the coronation game. This was supposed to be the game where you're able to go out and you're able to get a big win on the road against the Super Bowl champs, get a big win against one of the best teams in the NFL, and then you're supposed to be able to come back home and you're supposed to be able to do it again. You're supposed to show that you're not living high on your own supply. You're supposed to show that you're able to do these things every single week, and you're a good team. Good teams don't have up-down theory. Good teams don't play really well against good opponents and then lose games against opponents they should win. This was a game you should have won. This is a game you lost. This is a game where your head coach just had brain fart after brain fart after brain fart. You know, I pull up the play-by-play because during the game I was really stuck on what took place early in the game. What took place in the first quarter? I'm sorry, in the beginning of the second quarter. It was the 4th and 4. You're at Seattle's 31-yard line. You go for it. I don't know why you don't roll your kicker out there, and I don't know why you don't just pick up the points. At this point, the game is 7-7. You look at the playbook says take the points. Take the easy points. If you don't trust your field goal kicker, then why is he on your roster? If you don't trust your field goal kicker to make, this is a pretty routine kick. You don't trust him to do his job, he shouldn't be here. He's just taking up space. And at this point, you've got so many goddamn injuries. You need as many people as possible. So why is he on your roster if you're not going to utilize him the way you're supposed to utilize him? You don't take the points. That ends up costing you later on in this game. And then you can fast forward. And look, there were a couple of untimely turnovers. There was a pick six. There were a couple of things that went against you and that you kind of caused. All right. But you fast forward, and now you have a 4th and 2 from the 45, and you're going to go for it again? You look at the playbook. The playbook says just punt it, pin them deep. At that point in the game, you had control. You had control. You were able to dig yourself out of a hole where you put yourself in it because you didn't take the 3 points. All right? Dug yourself out. You're rocking and rolling. Instead, you go for it. Instead of just pinning them deep and rolling your defense out there and trying to stymie them. Next thing you know, you turn it over. They have a short field. They end up scoring a touchdown. So now you're playing behind. That's when that interception happens. And then you fast forward to the very end of the game where Dan Campbell comes out and Dan Campbell's like, well, I didn't want to give them the ball back. I didn't want them to have a chance to get a field goal. Just score a touchdown. You don't have to worry about any of this. Utilize your timeouts correctly. You don't have to worry about any of this. The very first play at the 50-yard line, you're getting the ball halfway to where you need to be, and you've got just under 2 minutes. Your first play, you end up taking up almost 40 seconds of the minute 44 you were allotted. And then your second play takes up almost 35 seconds of the minute and 5 that you have left. What are you doing? What are you doing? Then you decide to call a timeout? Then you decide to call a timeout with 26 seconds left. And now you got to get into hurry-up offense? What is your thought process here? And if you look at the play selection, you look at the play calling, I know we give Ben Johnson a hell of a lot of praise around here. We talk about Ben Johnson like he's the second coming of Christ. Ben Johnson, what are you doing? Every play you ran, basically dive to the middle, short pass to the middle, dive to the middle. Like you're not doing anything. You're not picking up any yards. Get out there, pick up some yards, end up in the end zone. There were options for you. There were possibilities for you. All of a sudden, play calling gets really bland. All of a sudden, head coaches have brain farts. You've got freaking timeouts. They don't roll over. You can't take these into overtime with you. Use your damn timeouts. Don't cost your team. If you ask me, I think the coaching staff screwed this team. I think the moment got too big for these coaches, and I think they shriveled. Yeah, Jared Goff had a really bad interception that was ran back for a touchdown. Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown had a turnover. Khalif Raymond had a turnover. These things don't usually happen, but they happened in this game. But you know what? You were still better than all of that. And you had a chance to win this game. But brain farts and scared coaching cost you this game. You end up losing a game you should have won. This was a game that you should have handled Seattle. In the end, maybe you got outcoached by Pete Carroll. I don't know. Maybe you just shot yourself in the foot. I don't know. But I blame the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff has a huge cross to bear with this loss. It just goes to show you that this team, whether it's the team or whether it's the coaches, either way you put it, they're not ready for prime time. They're not ready for the spotlight. They're not ready for when the light gets brightest and hottest. This team wilts, and that is frustrating.
Well, there are factors too. Look, the injuries, it's not an excuse. You lost one of your best offensive linemen in your left tackle, which forces, obviously it's a good replacement of Penei Sewell, but you realize that when Goff got pressure, it came from the right side, which kind of forced the miscommunication, and that came from the side of Matt Nelson. So you look at it and you say, oh boy, look what's going on here. The game was so disjointed. It was like a hodgepodge of players getting in and out of the game with injuries. It was crazy. And here's the thing, and I was upset after the game, but I look at it and I say, now you guys know that the 49ers and the Seahawks are better than you. That's what 1 and 2 look like, and maybe you're not number 3, you're probably number 5. and you realize the Eagles are better than you and the Seahawks are better than you. They out-physicaled and they out-coached the Lions. Now, this is a good thing because it'll give the tape needed to motivate this football team that, look, if you guys are going to play, filled with errors and not get off your assignments, get off your blocks, then you're going to have a big problem trying to succeed in the National Football League. And the defenders are saying, look, we tried to contain way too much Geno Smith, and we didn't shed our blocks. We didn't do enough to really handle and effectively do what we needed to do. Mistakes were made, miscommunication. And in the end, the reason why there was so much miscommunication is the scheme wasn't good enough. You played way too much, way too passive in the secondary. The linebackers didn't do just enough. They didn't do enough to impact anything or disrupt any routes. And second of all, let's just be frank and honest. We underestimated the Seahawks. They're a better football team than you. DK Metcalf, Lockett, and Geno Smith, for whatever reason, along with Kenneth Walker, who is a superstar, guys. He is a solid running back that came out of Michigan State. This is a football team that, even though they were without key offensive linemen, the football team coached by Pete Carroll has weapons that out-schemed you, that were able to take advantage. Because, look, let's just be honest. If a 6'3", 6'4", 230-pound behemoth of a man is running and the cornerback is 5'9" to 5'11", there is such a mismatch that you have no chance in hell. You can't do it. And so they looked at it and said, we're picking on Jerry Jacobs. This is our money. And Geno Smith handled business. And Glover Quinn, who appeared on a local network, said the same thing. He said, look, in the end, the Lions just truly don't have a lockdown corner that's going to make anything easier for the defensive coordinator. So I just think that you were fucked from the moment the game started till the game ended. Look, cuz you sat there, you were sitting in your seat, you were rabid, you were excited, you're like, let's go. And what did it do to the Seahawks offense? It did jack shit. They marched up down the field right away. What does that tell you? That is the definition. Just turn on that opening drive. Decibel levels going crazy at 118 and higher. Periodically, methodically, surgically, march right up the field and through the script, score a touchdown. That's pure coaching. The scheme was perfect, and they took advantage of their physicality. And I think another facet in sports, and that's why coaches, and that's why Dan Campbell told reporters when he spoke to the media for the first time in preparation to face the Falcons, he said, we're back in the mud. The hype train now is back down, where we know after a loss we got to be focused and play better. The realization is this. We all love it. Me and you, we love C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Ski mask, baby. I loved it. Focus. It's like a thing. For a football team, and deep down, if you gave Dan Campbell the bourbon treatment and let him just say the truth serum, he's going to be like, shit, that was fucked up. Why is he going to say that? That amped up the Seahawks just that more to say, oh, you guys are going to steal a win from us when we're desperate and we need a win? Oh, you're going to shit talk us? Oh, wait a minute. We were in the playoffs. You weren't. What are you going to steal? You ain't going to steal shit. So instantly, there's more noise surrounding the game. They heard it. They knew it. And you know that shit was plastered all over the Seattle Seahawks. They're like, what the fuck are they doing? Ski masks in September? All right, let's do it. And that stung, bro. That stung. What stung more than anything than the defensive collapse, overtime, Dan Campbell being conservative, seeing those fucking Seahawks dancing in the locker room with a blue ski mask, it stung. It stung because when the bully goes up for the fight and then acts like they're tough, false bravado, and then the real big dog, the guy that's skinnier, the guy that's maybe just a little bit sneaky, that's done their work in jiu-jitsu, does a super kick and it's a one kick knockout, you're like, fuck! It was wrong. C.J. Gardner-Johnson shouldn't have did that with the ski mask. They should have just kept quiet, handled business, and in the end, the Seahawks, they took it. And there was a lot of mistakes. But with all of that, I think the biggest mistake is Dan Campbell. I thought that with all the mistakes, you had momentum with the football, And I know all the analytic geeks and all the win percentage geeks are like, Dan Campbell makes all the great decisions. Yeah, because he goes for it so much on fourth down. The point is this. He bled the clock. His philosophy is wrong, which I wrote at All Lions. It's not execution, it's philosophy. It's the idea of Dan Campbell's done this before and he said this before and he's sticking to his guns, but the philosophy is wrong. The idea of I want to balance scoring versus not letting the opponent get the ball back, fuck it. If they got to get the ball back with your defense with 30 seconds left and they got the pressure, that's what you do. And if they go down the field and score the touchdown, the focus is on Aaron Glenn and the defense, not you. Score the fucking touchdown and go from there. This idea of getting so cute, this is the old mantra. This is what old school coaches do. They go out there and they say, oh, I got to find this delicate balance. Okay, we got to score, but we can't give them enough time. We got to do this, we got to do that. Look, in the end, your defense's job on both fronts was to stop the Seahawks. It was going to be hard, but I'd rather them try to stop them with 30 seconds left than it is with 2 timeouts and a whole overtime to fuck with you. And that's the key, is that the game was in your hands and you got cute when you're Mr. Aggressive. And that's the issue. All the mistakes are washed away if you score a touchdown. Because it's not that. Guys, watch the tape. It's available for you. It's only $100. You get to watch every game over and over again. After the incompletion, the passes were less than 6 yards. It was 2 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards. You took your foot off the gas. You played to hold the clock and score the tie. That's what you played for at home, and I think that philosophy is wrong. The philosophy should be, you're at home, go for the jugular, score the touchdown, you're up 35-31, you pin them back, it's a kickoff or whatever you got to do, starts at the 25, 30 seconds left, the ultimate pressure, maybe then Aiden Hutchinson gets the opportunity for his 1 sack of the game. That's what you got to play for. You can't be somebody that's uber aggressive and then you start reverting back to what all these old school coaches do and go, I got to play I don't want to. And he described it poorly too on the radio. He's like, oh, it's an end of half situation. It's not the end of the half. It's the end of the game. And the end of the game dictates you score a touchdown. Win the game. And I think they would have. I think that with that pressure, I thought with the Seahawks getting the football back, down 4, they would have been screwed. That place, you would have been not doing this podcast. You'd be like, Doc, John, I'm sorry. I know. Listen, my voice is gone. I screamed my head off. We got the decibel level to 140. I think you're right. The coaching staff and the scheme that they put together being way too passive on defense and Dan Campbell at the end did the Lions no favors. But at the end, I got to ask you this. Your reaction to that, and how fucking bad is it that the defense was not able to... I mean, it's overtime. You don't have to do much. Just don't give up the touchdown. Couldn't do it. And that was a kick to the gut on that defense.
Dan Campbell said it best. We're in the muck now, right? We're back in the mud. And this team, I feel like, was predicated on hype. And if you look at the last 2 games, the offense really isn't scoring at the clip that they were scoring last year. The defense doesn't seem like you can really trust it. Yeah, it had a big play in the Kansas City game where Brian Branch returned the ball for a touchdown. But you just said it. Seattle marched up and down on this defense. Is this team all hype? Is this team just soft? Did they get soft over the offseason because of all the hype? Everybody expected this team to kind of pick up and continue where they had left off, and they're supposed to have better players. They addressed the secondary in free agency. They added to the linebacking core. I think we all wish they would have did a little bit more along the defensive line, but it is what it is. Offensively, I think we all expected this team to just be able to go out there and continue what they were doing, because they added 2 running backs who I think in everybody's estimation were better than the previous 2 that they had. You look at the wide receiving core, we all agree it's very thin, but I thought they went into last year with a thin wide receiving core. And in the offensive line, this was supposed to be the first time that you were supposed to be able to get to see what this offensive line was supposed to look like as it was supposed to be fully constructed. And to me, the offense isn't producing the way it's supposed to. The defense has looked just out of sorts. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily think Aaron Glenn's a very good defensive coordinator. I think Aaron Glenn is very good at being reactionary and kind of troubleshooting things when it's already kind of blown up in his face. You look at last year with the way the defense kind of evolved and took care of a couple of things after a couple of firings and moving some guys around. But I don't think he's a very good game strategist. I don't think he puts together a very good game plan for this defense. We're going to get into Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson, I don't even know where to start. Production hasn't really been there, At least in this game, it was not. And he's supposed to be your best defensive lineman. So we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But I do feel like this team is all hype right now. I don't feel like this team, when you look at it, that they are built for the long haul. I don't feel like this team is built to win these playoff games that we're all predicting them to win or to get into. On top of all that, this team is now dealing with a rash of injuries. You just lose your loudest and arguably one of your best mouthpieces on the defense in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He's done. You look at that offensive line. Ragnow's dealing with an injury. You've got Vaitai dealing with an injury. You got Taylor Decker dealing with an injury. So you've got injuries up and down that offensive line. Amon St. Brown, who's your best wide receiver and probably your best offensive threat, he's dealing with an injury now. David Montgomery, he's injured. You've got injuries everywhere all over this team. So now we're going to really test your depth. We're going to really see if what we said in the offseason where this team looks deeper. We're going to find out just how deep this team is, because going into game 3, you are going down that 2 and that 3 deep depth chart, and you're looking for guys to stand up and make plays. And like I said, man, right now, with where I'm at with this team, and yeah, I get it. It might be overreaction, but I'm so upset with what I've seen the last couple of games. Offense has not looked crisp, does not look like it's necessarily on the same page, and defense looks like it's struggle busing up and down the field, and it's frustrating. So I ask you, is this team all hype? Is this team, are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing with the offensive defense, both looking poor? Talk me off the ledge. Okay. So I feel like that's what you're going to do. I feel like you're going to come here and you're going to be like, look, you're overreacting. You're a little bit too into the sauce. You gotta calm down. You gotta dial it back a little bit.
Yeah, it's crazy. I sit here and I scratch my head because that's the Lions, cuz. You can't pinpoint. That's the history of the Lions. That's what we've been doing for 10 years. We think left, right happens. We think right, left happens. I mean, literally everybody on the staff picked the Lions to beat the Seahawks. I mean, how the hell do you lose an opener when the decibel level was that high? My ears were ringing when I got home. I didn't think it was going to be that loud. My ears literally were ringing all the way up until 10 p.m. at night from the crowd and how hyped they were. How do you lose that? How do you... I mean, you can go 2-0. You can establish yourself in the NFC. You can beat the team that kept you out of the postseason. It's crazy. And that's the beauty of NFL football. That's the beauty of matching up every Sunday. And that's the phrase, any given Sunday. But I can talk you off the ledge because there's some positivity. I think the Lions recognize that, okay, we cannot just go out there and play so sloppily and make our way through it. It's going to be a big test, though, because Atlanta's no joke. They play, and it's actually kind of a referendum game in the manner in which if you don't play well, if Aiden doesn't show up and get 2 or 3 sacks, if the linebackers don't play well, if Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs don't perform well, Dan Campbell used a phrase that, quite frankly, is pretty scary. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, shit. And I want you guys to go hear it. This is not clickbait, John. This is not amping up a soundbite. This is not our Twitter page making shit up like these new aggregates do. I'm not Dove here. Dan Campbell said on Wednesday, he said, if we don't play to our brand of football, the Falcons will take our soul. That's what he said. You know what that means? That means they're going to come and try to knock the shit out of the Detroit Lions with the running attack and try to break through the offensive line and break through the defensive line. They're going to try to run the ball 30 times. They're going to play violent. They're going to take the football probably out of Ritter's hand, pretty much, and try to run the football a lot. Obviously, you have Smith and Kyle Pitts, the tight ends, that are playing very well. Because you could see one of these games, and I don't want to do it, so I'm going to do some reverse psychology. 2 touchdowns from Kyle Pitts, 2 touchdowns from Bijan Robinson, him running apeshit free all over the field. You could see a disaster if it gets out of hand. If you don't play well and you don't get your shit together and pressure the quarterback and clean up the mistakes and get your look, the crowd could be even louder. You got to get that communication in order. This game can get out of hand. This game can get out of hand quickly. And you could say to yourself, wow, Lions could have taken Bijan Robinson over Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm curious to get your sense of how kind of this matchup is going to go, because I don't want to see it. Please, we've asked for it many times, but this one is right in our face. Jahmyr Gibbs is forced to be the guy because of David Montgomery's injury. So I love that, to see how much he's going to be used, how he's going to be utilized. Does he do something? Because all in all, nobody cares about marinating your rookies. Nobody cares about that. Bijan got over 100 yards. And this is the NFL. And you don't get to redshirt your players. Sorry, Brad. I know you love to do that, but it doesn't work like that. Because now directly, if Bijan goes off for 150 yards and you give Jahmyr Gibbs 8 carries for 20 yards and you don't target him, and you're targeting Marvin Jones and Craig Reynolds, Detroit is going to be quite upset. I'll be upset. You'll be upset. So this is a referendum game. You got to get your shit together, and you got to match the intensity of the crowd, and you got to bring it, because if you don't, this Falcons team will leave 3-0. And this is also not only a simple game at Ford Field. This is a referendum on the team that Brad Holmes put together. This is one of those games, because people are saying it. You know, the ultra fan can't hide forever. You could have still had Swift and drafted 2 key defenders. You could have drafted differently. You could have had high-end players like George Pickens. You could have not drafted Jamison Williams and targeted the defense. You could have drafted differently. So these players that you drafted, they got to start showing up. And I love what Dan Campbell said. He said it through the media, and I know who he's talking to. He's talking to that defense. He's talking to Aiden Hutchinson. He was talking to C.J. Gardner-Johnson. My reliable players have to be reliable. They got to make plays. Charles Harris, Ali McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson. Because if you look at the PFF rankings at all Lions, the worst 4 on defense were defensive linemen. 4 scores that were terrible. So this is a referendum game, and I expect the Lions to pass it. I think it's going to be a slobber knocker, back and forth. Get ready, guys. This one's going to be another fourth quarter game, and the Lions this time have to find a way to come away with the victory.
See, I think it's going to be a real interesting game, because Bijan Robinson is a bit of a game changer, right? He is the ultimate X factor. The creative run schemes and fits that Arthur Smith has for his offense, and specifically for his running backs, is going to really test this defense. And look, Aiden Hutchinson had an awful game. The reason this is on our rundown, because sitting in the stands with fans all around me just basically criticizing Hutchinson and talking about how poorly he played. And you go back, you look at the stats, and you look at kind of what he did. He did play poorly. He didn't play well at all.
No, he had a lot of pressures. It just wasn't impactful.
He's just not getting home.
Not getting home. And coaching. Go back. The film showed that they forced him in a way to do what he did at Michigan when he played bad, which was over pursue. Now, he did get pressures. He did force them to hold. You can make the argument that the Seahawks should have been called a little bit more for holding, even on that last drive. But you got to overcome that. There's no excuse. That's what teams are going to do.
You got to be better.
You got to be better. And that's it.
So, now you lose a guy like James Houston, who's done, and sounds like he's got a broken ankle. He's going to be sidelined for at least 8 weeks. Yep. Look, Hutchinson's going to see double teams everywhere. So if you're the defensive coordinator and you're the defensive staff, you're a defensive lines coach, you got to go back to the drawing board. You got to figure out ways to get your best player to impact this football game, not just with QB pressures. I know he's got a ton of QB pressures. We're talking about, you need to get sacks. You need to get sacks. And look, QB pressures are cute and QB pressures are nice when they lead to turnovers, when they force the quarterback to throw off his back foot and he underthrows a wide receiver and is able to get picked off. We're not seeing that. You need Aiden Hutchinson to be more impactful. And I get where the fans are coming from. I really do. I don't think the game plan really benefited him at all this past week, and he's got to figure out a way to get better. The defensive coordinator has to figure out a way to get better. The defensive lines coach has to figure out a way to get – everybody's got to figure out a way to get better, because what you're going to see this week against Atlanta, this game could be over incredibly quickly, because you've got a freak show in Kyle Pitts. Look, I know Desmond Ridder is not great, but if he can get the ball to Kyle Pitts, he is elusive, and he is a freak show of an athlete playing tight end. You then look at the run game, and whether it's Bijan, whether it's Tyre Alexander, or it's Tyre Algier, or it's Cordell Patterson. Like you look at the running backs that they have. Like these guys are all incredibly gifted, and they all bring a little bit of something different to the plate. And if you're a offensive minded coach like Arthur Smith, that's like chocolate for you. You know, you can do anything with this, and you can come up with all kinds of crazy schemes. So defensively, they have to get better. They have to get better. And if your offense, if I'm Ben Johnson, I'm preparing my guys to be in a shootout because I don't know if I can trust that defense. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going into that offensive room, and I'm talking to all these guys, and I'm like, look, we're going to have to be the team that puts up 46 points. You can't trust them. You want to win football games? You can't trust them. Let's go out there. Let's put up 46 points. And if I'm the defensive coaching staff, I'm going in there, I'm telling them, like, look, don't you guys let us down. You need to go out there. You need to make stops. You need to force turnovers. You got to get better. What they're going to throw at us is going to be absolutely bananas. It's going to be bonkers because they're really, really good. They're really creative. They got guys all over the place that can impact this game. You need to shut them down.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's next man up, so let's go.
So I'm curious, and we'll give a little time to college football because I'm just in love with talking about Mel Tucker and his FMLA requests, which is classic. And I don't know if you saw, I don't even know if it's true or not, but it looked like someone dug up that he did the same thing with the Bears, which is like, oh my God, it's crazy. So let's look at it like this. What was it like in the stands? Because the media room is the same. It's just a zoo. You got to try to keep up with everything going on. The radio's all off in terms of delay. The TV's delayed. So you got to try to keep it all together, write it all up. And going to overtime, it was crazy. And everything just happens so fast. It's like you sit down and it's like, okay, sit down in the rocket chair and just start going. Create this, create that, watch this, watch that. And in the meantime, you're trying to watch a game. But what was it like in the stands? Because it was loud. The fans were ready. The tailgating were great. They loved to talk. And wearing that shirt, people are like, yeah, I'll talk to Sports Illustrated. Yeah, I'll talk to SI.com. What's going on? Oh, I follow you. Or the one guy in the tailgate was like, I was like, oh, great, I can promote you. What do you want? He's like, interview me. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Everybody's down for content. Everybody's down to be recorded. It was fun walking. The energy was great. It was awesome. The guy was like, yeah, grab a drink. No problem. Just record me and tell everybody about our situation. I'm like, I will happily trade a drink for whatever you want. Whatever. Just to, he actually messaged me before. It was funny in that he was like, hey, can you promote my tailgate? And I'm like, okay. And then I walked by and that was the exact one, just haphazardly. The tailgates were crazy. They were all over the place. And I get there about 9:30 to walk a little bit to get there into the building by 10, and the crowd was hyped. The music was blaring. Everything was going on. You can see the video I did with the two fans wearing the ski masks. The best, I was a little nervous because I was never nervous about the game until the fan, you can see the video on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. I'm like, what's going to go down today at Ford Field? He's like, don't worry about it, ski mask gang. And he's like, don't worry, take it to the bank. Lions -17. And I was like, bro, come on. I was laughing inside. I held it together, but it was funny. The fans are crazy. They were wild. What was it like inside? Did you donate to the cause of the $14 beer, or what was the fan experience like?
I drink way too much.
Yeah, I got a sense based on how we were talking. I'm like, oh, Adam, it's drunk.
Yeah.
I could tell. You have a certain, let me just say with Adam, very predictable and the way in which he's direct. When he's having some fun and doing his thing, it's like, I'm fucking mad. This is crazy. And I'm like, oh, Adam got liquored up. I better not to say anything sarcastic or say anything twisted because I knew you had a good time. In the stadium, you drank in the tailgate, right? Don't tell me you donated to the cause.
I donated to the cause. I donated to a lot, man.
You paid the $12, $14 beers?
I had a really, really good time because I don't know if I'll make it to another regular season game. this year. So I went. I had a blast. I had a lot of fun. We got down there probably about 9:15.
Nice.
And we had kind of walked through Eastern Market, seen a couple of people, shook a couple of hands. We ended up going to Vivio's. There was a point where I got up to leave the bar at Vivio's to go pee, and I stood up and I was like, "You are hammered. Like, you are hammered. You really need to slow down." And then I didn't slow down. It was just pedal to the floor. And yeah, I had a couple $14 beers. I had a really, really good time. Like I said, it was a blast. The kids that were around us were great. The parents that were around us were even better. The dudes sitting behind me and in front of me, they were all fantastic. It was a lot of fun. I will tell you this. I was looking forward to this game because, like I said, I was at the Chicago Bears Monday night game, and that was the loudest and most interactive crowd I've ever been a part of, I've ever bore witness to, I've ever seen. This crowd was not that crowd. That crowd, hands down, is still number one in my book. This crowd was hyped. This crowd was very good, but this crowd was not that crowd. And I don't know if it just people are fat and sassy or what, but we tried our best to get as hype and as loud as possible. My hand still hurts because you can take your chair, and when it folds up, you can bounce your chair off the backrest, and doing that makes a very loud echo. So I was doing that while screaming. So I was all over the place. And yeah, I was upset. There were a couple tweets that I had to go back and delete because I was like, I don't need anybody seeing that. I was pretty worked up. I'll tell you this stays between me and you and everybody else listening. I showed up at work on Monday. I got up at 4 for work and drove myself here and got here at 5 o'clock. I was still drunk. I got in my car and I was like, I don't think you should be driving to work. I showed up to work still hammered from the night before. So I've had a good time. I put in work. Like I said, man, I showed up. I did my job. Lions didn't do their job. They dropped the ball.
My God. Yeah, I figured you had a good time. And so what'd you do after the game? What was the plan? You get home, it's devastating. So your reaction is you're pissed. What was the reaction of everybody? They were just like, what? Did they do the same old lines? Because what I did was had planned with the boys, invited me to do the Arabic thing, just hang out, drink, and watch the Sunday night game. We go out like once every 2 months. And everybody was just talking about you can't trust the Lions. Look what they do. They never win when they're supposed to. You know, everybody's the same. They react the same. They're just like, why can't they just take it? Why can't they be the ski mask gang? Why can't they have nice things? Why does it got to be injuries, pick sixes? Why does it got to be like that? And I think that was a general sense was like, we've seen it before. It's disappointing.
Yeah, I got to I ended up walking through the streets, interacting with a lot of fans. Like, it was really cool. Like, the Detroit fans are great, and they'll tell you exactly what they're feeling. So I got to walk through the streets, interact with a bunch of them, made my way back to MGM, and same sentiment, right? Everybody's just upset. Everybody's frustrated. Everybody's trying to figure out why they didn't win this game. Like, everybody's kicking ideas and stuff around. And that's kind of what it was. It was just like, this sucked, this has to be better. Don't know what we're going to do about this. So it was just kind of like a venting session for Detroit fans on the way to MGM. Got to MGM, was there for a little bit, ended up leaving there, went home, and me and my buddy ended up catching the tail end of the 4 o'clock games, and we ended up catching the first half of the late night Sunday night game. So it was fun. Like, I needed all that time to really decompress. And to be honest with you, I woke up the next morning and I was still really upset. Like, I woke up Monday morning and I was still ready to fight somebody. Like, if Dan Campbell was in front of me, I would have got him in a wrestling match and I probably would have tried choking him out. If Aaron Glenn was there, I'd have picked him up and pile drove him through a table and possibly through shards of glass, because I'm kind of tired of Aaron Glenn at this point. So I was still pretty upset and worked up even on Monday. But I did need that extra time to just kind of come down, because I was pissed, man. I'm still upset about it. And I'm still upset that my voice, like, it's I don't know if the raspiness is coming through, but talking hurts so bad right now. I've got nothing but hot liquids and cough drops. It sucks. So,
all right. Do you see the rebound? Do you see the Lions coming back and getting to 2-1? Because if you don't, hate to do it, the next time we'll record, it'll be the day of the game. And it could be 1-3 real fast.
I want to tell you that I do see them winning this game, but here's the deal. I don't trust what I've seen on the defensive side of the ball. And that was the side that they've spent a ton of money on. That was a side that they've completely revamped. And I've not seen anything. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like I said, I don't know if it's Aaron Glenn's game plans. I don't know if it's just the D lines not making things uncomfortable for quarterbacks. I don't know. I think the Lions lose another heartbreaker, man. I think they end up losing this one 24-21. It's going to be closer, but the result's not going to be what you want.
Oh, man.
And look, I want it to be the other way around.
Yeah.
I just don't trust this defense right now. And then you factor in some of the injuries that they've had. You've got to come up with a more creative game plan and give me something different, because what you've shown me in the last couple weeks isn't nearly good enough. Not nearly good enough. It's just not meeting the expectation, the standard that I think we set for this season.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. All right, let's turn our attention to college football. Look, I'm just going to get my thoughts on Michigan State out of the way. I think it's great. They're proactive. They're moving forward. Now we can actually talk legitimately about the coaches that can be hired. I think that in the end, guys, look, I hate to break it to you, and sometimes it gets messy and people don't like it. This is about money. It's done. Mel Tucker knows he's done. He's just trying to squeeze $20-30 million on a settlement, and this is what lawyers do. He's put it in the hands of the lawyers. I think, in all honesty, and I'll ask you this to get your opinion of it, Michigan State, scratch the fucking check and let's move on. Scratch the $20 million, settle it, move on. And if Mel Tucker asks for a penny more than 10 or a penny more than what you're willing to pay, you drag it out, because here's the problem, guys. Mel Tucker, it has an advantage in that some information has been released in a certain manner, and he's going to want to know all the information of who said what, when, where, how. You don't want none of that coming out. You don't want any emails coming out about any idiot that was upset with Mel or a super fan talking about Mel or talking about things he should not be talking about with Mel. You don't want any of that coming out. Scratch the check, move on. It's a dirty stain on your program, but can be erased quickly with a 10-win season. So fucking scratch the $20 million check, maybe 25, call it a fucking day, and move on and take the embarrassment of hiring a grifter, a supposed individual who's done this before, somebody that was just not the right guy for the program. And he can move on and do his thing. I just think that scratch the check, call it a day, get a settlement, and let's not have this get dragged out and all the information about who said what about Mel Tucker get dragged out. Because if you go down that road, one slip up, you're looking at probably even more than what you would have originally paid him. And the PR game is nasty. And if Mel's got a decent lawyer, they find one inkling of something with race, with something said, implemented, the rule change, anything in an email that was off-putting, these lawyers don't care. They'll charge by the hour, and they'll sift through, when you read this shit, they'll sift through 50,000 pages of shit, text, this and that. You get one moron that said something wrong, and that shit's plastered all over ESPN, and they'll be happy to say that Michigan State railroaded Mel Tucker for this and that and this and that. Clear it all up, call it a day, scratch the check, new chapter, new coach. Let's move on from the Mel Tucker saga.
Yeah, you don't sound like you have much faith in the board of directors and basically Michigan State's hierarchy to not screw this up. And I'm taking the opposite approach. If Mel Tucker has done this before, if Mel Tucker has basically done everything that has kind of come out that we know about, I don't see any reason why you should pay him. I feel like you're Michigan State. Save yourself the $80 million that you owe him. Let him take you to court. Let him try to fight this. We did our job. We did our due diligence. Come get some. You want to load up? You want to go to war? Let's go to war. I'm not paying you a dime on this because you're a dirtball. You're a sleazeball. You've now tarnished the name of MSU with the likes of everything else that we've talked about in the past regarding MSU. You're now lumped in with all of that, and you have now drug our name back through all of this. On top of that, you have to think about this. I'm really surprised that MSU is going about this the way they're going about it. I figured they would have waited until at least the hearing happened after October 6th. The moment that he is fired, you can have players enter the transfer portal, and you can have half of this team basically leave, just walk right out the door. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but if you're a university, you generally want to try to protect and insulate the season that you currently have. To me, it just kind of feels like MSU is waving the white flag on this season, and it feels like they're ready to fight Mel Tucker tooth and nail, and they have no inkling of even considering paying him anywhere close to 10, 20, 30, nowhere even near the $80 million that he is owed on his contract. And it sounds like they are ready for a long, tough fight, whatever it is. So to me, it says that they've done their due diligence. They've done their job. They've conducted themselves appropriately, and now you just have to trust the process and let the process play out. I'm not paying him any money. He's like, to me, Mel Tucker sounds like he's a bit of a scumbag. You know, pretty cool to win to have that 11-2 year. Pretty cool to go to a bowl game and do a lot of good things. But he kind of feels like he's a snake oil salesman. Feels like he is just a dirtball through and through. And it as a Michigan State fan, it has to be frustrating kind of watching this play out. Yeah. But I'm not giving him any monies.
Right. Here's the thing. And this is where it gets yucky in the legal system. Look, in the end, based on the facts, Mel Tucker is going to be deservedly moved on from his job. But in the process of what's called discovery, for those of you that don't know, they're going to want to know everything. Who knew what when? Board of directors, Allen, the ladies, the guys, the interns, the staff, who texted who what, who said this. If it involved Mel Tucker at Michigan State, these lawyers want to know it. Just one inappropriate, hey, we can get this fucker out based on his dirty-ass, nasty habits. One of those kind of things sent in jest. You know, somebody getting drunk at the Lions game is like, fuck yeah, Mel Tucker's out. In a text, a GIF gone awry, an inappropriate, out-of-context GIF meme gone awry. That shit's going to be plastered all over the media.
Do we have you on the board of directors at MSU?
Yeah. No, you know what?
If you were on the board of directors, I could see this happening.
Yeah. No. Because the phones would be destroyed, files would be destroyed, it'd be gone. None of that would be there. It would be, I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about.
Never happened.
Never happened. Sir, this is your phone. I didn't send it. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's delay this for 5 years. I don't remember 5 years ago. I don't remember 2 days ago. So I look at it and I say, handle the business. It's going to be settled. I think it's 80% going to be settled. It's just going to be nasty. Is it going to be, what does Mel want? Does he want 20 million? Does he want 10? Will he settle for nothing? If Michigan State's like, okay, fine, we'll go 5, and he'll be like, no, I want 30, and they meet somewhere. I think that this will be, if they got 2 good lawyers, it's going to depend on how much these lawyers want. Do they have any outstanding bills? Do any of the lawyers have divorces they got to pay for? Because all these lawyers do is they battle each other in court, and then they go have bourbon and laugh at how much money they're taking from the university and Mel Tucker. They're just going to be like, okay, we had enough, and they'll settle, and they'll be not. You'll never hear of this again. Mel Tucker will sign an NDA. The university will sign an NDA. We'll move on, and we'll focus on important stuff. So we'll see. I give it 80% settled. You don't. Let's see how it plays out in the legal sense, and let's see if Michigan State handled themselves properly.
I think they will probably settle. Okay. I'm just saying if I was MSU, I would not settle.
Yeah. I think it's going to be settled.
I would go to war, and I'm going to keep all that money and give it to whoever my new head coach is.
Sometimes when you go to war, you step on a landmine, and you don't want to do that in the legal world. You don't want to do that. So we'll see. Let's see how it plays out. What'd you think about Michigan? We got about 5 minutes left. It was sloppy. It was a game in which it was clear they didn't care. It was Bowling Green. J.J. McCarthy was playing substandard. Look, it's what it is. I've watched maybe 5 minutes total of game action of Michigan because it's clear they're playing cupcakes. They're not playing individuals and teams that can scare them. So Rutgers could be something, but not enough to win the game. I just thought that it was clear that Michigan overlooked Bowling Green, and they should have. I mean, it was nothing there. Bowling Green's a team that's not going to ever really contend to beat you. So I just thought that, okay, they'll clean it up. They need that wake-up call. They need that. It's good for Michigan to have a subpar performance that Jim Harbaugh can throw up there and be like, Jesus, you know? And I just think that Michigan is going to need to place a little bit better competition. Hopefully Rutgers tests them a little bit, because really for Michigan, it's all an evaluation for how they handle should they make the playoff, which I think they will. How do they look? How do they adapt? Do the wide receivers? I think, some question marks are arising in regards to that team, in regards to the running attack and consistency and outside of the top wide receivers, your depth on the offense. But I think that when focused, you see the makings of Michigan football with the offensive line, with Blake Corum, with arguably a top 3 quarterback in the entire country. It's just a bad performance by Michigan, but one that was caused by the opponent that they were facing.
Yeah, so you said you've not watched more than 5 minutes. And look, I think you're doing yourself a service there by not, because like you said, obviously they're not taking any of these games serious, or not nearly seriously enough. And I think that might be part of the problem. When I watch this team play, and not so much from a defensive standpoint, because I'm not sure what you're going to really learn from this team defensively, because they're not going up against anybody. I mean, this past weekend they went up against a third-string freshman quarterback. Like, good luck, But offensively, this team is built and predicated on being able to run the ball. It is built and predicated on ground and pound and applying and forcing their will. The offensive line and the run game hasn't been very consistent, hasn't been very good, and I don't think we've gotten the production that you expected to get out of it through these first 3 games. Now, the one thing I will say is there is a more of a propensity to throw the ball, and the offensive playbook looks like it's a little bit more opened up. They're going to allow JJ to do more. They're going to allow him to make calls at the line. They're going to allow him to throw the ball and try to throw it deep. That being said, he needs to be dialed in. He's got to figure out what's going on with his receivers, and they've got to be on the same page, because you're not going to be able to get away with games where you're turning the ball over 3 times. The offense looks like it is just kind of in cruise control, or there's just like a malaise over them, and we're just not seeing the production. These were games where this team should have came out, and at least one of them, right? I get it. You're not really revved up for this. It's not the Big Ten season. These are games. I think you played a FCS school, and you didn't play any of the FBS schools. So like you're playing like Sisters of the Poor. I get it, but you know what? Go out there and show the world what you can do. Show the world what your potential is. I get you want to keep some in the tank, but you know how you do that? You go out, you step on the gas, and you step on their throat in the first half. That way you can put your subs in for the second half, and you just continue to rock and roll. And you really haven't seen that at all through these first 3 games. So now we enter Big Ten season, and I'm hoping that we get to see something, because I've not seen enough to make me believe that this team is the number 2 team in the country. I've not seen enough to make me believe that this team is going to be able to win a very down Big Ten. I haven't seen enough that's going to help me believe in a team that's going to make a push in the college football playoff. Right now, I feel like you've got a team that is going to beat up on an awful Big Ten. It's going to get to probably 2 or 3 big games this year. And you're probably going to lay a dud in at least half of them, if not 66% of those big games. And if you are lucky enough to make it to a playoff, you'll probably be the first team out again. So I've not seen enough. I don't believe in this team right now. And I have major concerns with the offensive side of the ball because, again, they've not played anybody, so I can't really judge or gauge what the defense is doing. So hopefully the man in the khaki pants comes back and this team figures out how to play football and they look dominant this week, because I've not seen enough through the first 3 weeks.
Gotcha. What do you think is the biggest area of need, biggest area of concern that would make you or any Michigan fan say, okay, this could prevent us from winning the biggest games at the highest levels?
The offensive line. Okay. The offensive line, I've not seen that killer instinct, and specifically the offensive line when it translates to the run game. I've not seen them just bully guys back off the ball and keep pushing them into that second level. So Blake Corum or Haskins can kind of get going and just pick up the yards that they need. I've not seen enough of the offensive line just being meat and potatoes kind of guys, putting your hard hat on and punching in and punching dudes in the mouth. So if, like I said, maybe Harbaugh comes back, maybe Harbaugh has a bit of an influence and maybe he gets these guys revved up and maybe we get to see it a little bit more, but just not seen enough of it yet.
Okay. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Enjoyable hour of content. Always enjoy the opportunity that we get to talk about Detroit sports. You guys really are. I feel better, actually. After covering the Lions, being there, talking to my guy Adam made me feel better. We get a chance to kind of unload a little bit, let our thoughts out, and try and figure out what's going on. So much good Lions content. It's great to be able to break it all down with you guys. And thank you guys for listening. Anywhere you listen to your favorite audio content, type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. Hit us up at Detroit Podcast. Always enjoy the banter. Always enjoy you clowns trying to call me a clickbait artist after 10 years. It's not possible. The best is they're like, well, yeah, you did rope me into commenting, but this is what you're doing. I'm like, okay, guys, I don't post so that nobody responds to it. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that the stuff we talk about is entertaining and informative, and your opinions are just as valid as mine. So feel free. But the only opinion that really isn't valid is calling me a clickbait artist, because it's just not. After 10 years and what we've done, the proof is in the pudding. You like to talk about it. I talk about stuff you like to talk about. And me and Adam bring you content that you want to listen to. So that's the name of the game. So answer the question, and if you like it, great. If you don't, when you really, in the end, call me that, you look dumb. Because if literally in the end, if a post has 400 comments, then somebody is interested in the content. And that's hopefully what you can give me credit for, is knowing what that is. And that's due to the great producers like Adam, who I've learned from, and all the great radio producers and all the great content producers out there have all culminated in what you see, and hopefully a lot of people's one of their favorite Twitter accounts. Thanks, cuz. Let's get out of here, and let's talk again next week on the latest and greatest edition of Doc and Jock.